we need to answer the question that many people have. What about those who die before the age of accountability? What is that all about for people that aren't familiar with that language?
Well, first of all, there is an age of accountability. If you're not old enough to knowingly sin, you're not old enough to savingly believe. And if you're not old enough to knowingly sin, you're not old enough to suffer the consequences of that. God is just. I think the age of accountability is spoken of in the Bible in several places. One in Deuteronomy, one in Isaiah 7:15, which say the same thing. Before the child was old enough to know good from evil. Clearly it talks about an age before people were morally aware. The Bible also speaks of David's baby dying. And he said, I won't go, the baby's not going to come back to me. I'm going to go be with the baby. And we know David was going to heaven. Psalm 16, he talks about the resurrection and being God's presence. So there are children who die before the age of accountability. Jesus said, suffer little children, come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. God is just. Jesus said in John 9, if you didn't have the light, you wouldn't be guilty, but now that you have the light, you are guilty. So this is a general principle, just God's justice in general. All show that. Question is, what is that age? And I think it varies somewhere between, say, 4 and 12. If you have a lot of light, if you come in a Christian home, Christian context, you have a lot of light, I think it brings it on earlier. The very fact that many children make decisions for Christ when they're 4 or 5, most of ours did. I had a son, for example, who's in the ministry today, who came to me when he was 4. I was shaving, and he said, Daddy, I want to know how to go to heaven. And so I sat down there on the edge of the bathtub with him and led him to Christ. And after, I wanted to see if he was really sincere, so I said to him, did you accept Jesus in your heart? And he said, yes. I said, well, how do you know? To test him. He said, well, I accepted Jesus in my heart, and if he had finished the sentence, it would have been fine, and he came in, but he didn't. He said, I accepted Jesus in my heart, and when I get to heaven, I'm going to give him a great big hug and kiss. So, I mean, children can and do become saved. Well, you can't become saved if you aren't lost. So I'd say 4. And then in heathen lands where there's not much light, you might go as long as 12. Sometime in there, when you become conscious of a God, Romans 1:19, Romans 2:12 to 15, and you become conscious of the fact that you are not responding to what he wants to do in your life, you're morally accountable.
Yeah, I can remember the first time I went to Ethiopia, and the missionaries took me out to a spot. They said, people have never heard the gospel in this area. And I thought, what would it be like to preach to those people? Okay, I thought, is it a blank slate? And I found out that what Romans was talking about, that from the creation, they understand about the Creator and his power, okay? They were more sensitive to that than I felt than I was at that point. They knew about the Creator. They just didn't know how to come into a relationship with him. But I was amazed how sensitive these people that had never heard, how sensitive they were to that.
Well, there's an African who's done a scholarly study on it. His name is Mbidi, and it's on the African tribal religions, and he has shown that in all of the pre-literate, we used to call pagans, now pre-literate, all the pre-literate religions, there is a consciousness of this high God or sky God. They don't worship him because their sins have separated. They're interested in getting the demons off their neck, you know, but they believe in one God. He created everything else, so they know he's there.